This is a tale of immense faith, selflessness, sacrifice, and purity. Saint Maximilian Kolbe is a Polish saint known for being a martyr and radio host operator. Born in the Kingdom of Poland, then part of the Russian Empire, in 1894, Saint Maximilian Kolbe grew up learning about the importance of faith and devotion from his family. Born with the name Raymond Kolbe, second son of a weaver and midwife, this was the beginning of a life that would be marked by humility, devotion, and self-sacrifice. Thus, the saint was born. His father was an ethnic German, his mother Polish, and he had 4 brothers. Shortly after his birth, his family moved to Pabianice. In 1906, at age 12, he had a vision in his sleep, which greatly influenced his religious mission, a vision of the Virgin Mary. He later described this vision, as accounted in the book The Franciscan Tradition. That night, I asked the Mother of God what was to become of me. Then she came to me holding 2 crowns, one white, the other red. She asked me if I was willing to accept either of these crowns. The white one meant that I should persevere in purity, and the red that I should become a martyr. I said that I would accept them both. Thus originated his veneration of the Virgin Mary, and thus was his spiritual awakening. This marked the beginning of his journey of faith and represented his willingness of the ultimate charity and his acceptance of martyrdom. Just a year later, in 1907, him and his elder brother Francis joined the conventual Franciscan minor seminary in Lwów, and in 1910, he was allowed to enter the novitiate, the period of training and preparation a Christian novice in a religious order must go through. Saint Maximilian's decision to join the Franciscan order was a turning point in his life. He was inspired by the life of Saint Francis of Assisi, who had dedicated his life towards the service of the poor and the marginalized. Saint Maximilian saw this as a powerful example of how he too could live a life of service and devotion to God. He took his first vows in 1911, and from there on, his journey towards sainthood began. Just a year after taking his vows, in 1912, Kolbe attended the Pontifical Gregorian University in Rome, attaining a doctorate in philosophy, and the Pontifical University of St. Bonaventure, where he earned a doctorate in theology by 1920. Amidst his studies, World War I broke out. Kolbe's father, Julius Kolbe, joined the Polish legions fighting against the Russian Empire for their freedom and independency, to be recognized as an independent state. Julius was caught and hanged as a traitor, a traumatic event for Saint Maximilian, and which further propelled him into his faith. During his studies, he also witnessed multiple demonstrations against the Popes Pius X and Benedict XV during an anniversary celebration for the Freemasons. Kolbe described the incident. They placed the black standard of the Giordano Brunisti under the windows of the Vatican. On this standard, the Archangel, Michael, was depicted lying under the feet of the triumphant Lucifer. At the same time, countless pamphlets were distributed to the people in which the Holy Father, that is, the Pope, was attacked shamefully. Soon after, he would form the Militia Immaculate, or the Army of the Immaculate One, whose purpose was to work for conversion of sinners and enemies of the Catholic Church, especially the Freemasons. He took this purpose so seriously that he would add to the miraculous medal prayer a part pertaining to the Freemasons. O Mary, conceived without sin, pray for us who have recourse to thee, and for all those who do not have recourse to thee, especially the Freemasons and all those recommended to thee. In fact, he so strongly believed in this mission of the Militia Immaculate that he wanted all members of the Franciscan order to be consecrated to the militia with an additional vow. However, this was never put into effect because of hierarchical hurdles and opposition from lawyers. He furthered his cause by establishing a periodical Night of the Immaculate, a devotional publication based on the French messenger of the heart of Jesus. Saint Maximilian's piousness and religious endeavors were not limited to the West or Europe. His religious fervor propelled him to regions abound, and between 1930 and 1936, he undertook a series of missions to East Asia. Saint Maximilian first arrived in Shanghai, China, to spread his message of faith, but failed to gather a following in the region. He was then sent to Japan, where within a year he had pursued his mission to promote the Catholic faith by establishing a Franciscan monastery on the borders of Nagasaki, Mugenzi no Sono, and even publishing a Japanese version of his periodical Night of the Immaculate, which gained a circulation of 65,000 copies. The monastery gained fervent support and popularity that it remains a prominent church in the Roman Catholic Church in Japan. It was built on a mountainside, which, according to Shinto beliefs, is not the side best suited to be in harmony with nature. However, it is also the sole reason why the monastery still survived to this day after the atomic bombing of Nagasaki. Saint Maximilian was soon recalled back to Poland to return to his original Franciscan monastery in Niepokalanow, where they had begun a circulation called the Small Diary, which had gained quite some popularity, with over 137,000 copies in circulation, and almost double that, 225,000 copies during the weekends. He was appointed the guardian of Niepokalanow, and that is also where he began his radio operating career, where he held an amateur radio operating license and went by the call sign SP3RN. The Second World War proved to be a turning point in Saint Maximilian's life, and served as his path to martyrdom, to die in the name of his faith, and to inspire millions of Christians to this day. When the war first broke out, Kolbe was one of the few to live the pledges he'd taken, to live as his inspiration Saint Francis of Assisi lived, in service of the poor and marginalized, in service of those in need and in peril. Saint Maximilian was one of the few friars who remained in Niepokalanow Monastery, where he organized a temporary hospital to aid those in need. After the town was captured by the Germans in the first year of the war, Saint Maximilian was arrested, but later released after 3 months. When released, he still refused to sign the Deutsche Volksliste, which would have granted him rights similar to those of German citizens. In exchange for his recognition of his ethnic German ancestry, he continued providing sanctuary and aid to those fleeing the war, even providing shelter to refugees from Great Poland, including 2,000 Jews whom he hid among his friary. And even though he was given permission to continue his religious publications, albeit much smaller in scope, he still published anti-Nazi German works. The monastery was shut down by German authorities in 1941, and Kolbe imprisoned before being transferred after 3 months to Auschwitz as prisoner 16670. His faith tested. Kolbe persisted in his role as priest, even while continuously subjected to beatings, lashings, and other forms of violent harassment. He continued to spread the message of the gospel to his fellow prisoners. When one of his fellow inmates escaped from the concentration camp, the deputy camp commander of the camp ordered that 10 men were to be picked out and to be starved in an underground bunker, in order to discourage any further attempts at escape. When one of the selected men cried out, "My wife, my children," Kolbe volunteered to take his place. Kolbe would lead his fellow inmates in prayer, standing or kneeling at the center of the cell, calmly observing any who passed or entered. After being starved and deprived of water for 2 weeks, only Kolbe and 3 others remained alive, steadfast in their faith. The guards ordered the bunker to be emptied, and hence the last 4 survivors were injected with a lethal dose of carbolic acid and left to die. It is said that when it was Saint Maximilian's time to be injected, he calmly raised his left arm and accepted his fate. It was after the war, by 25 years in 1969, that Kolbe was declared venerable by the Pope Paul VI, in 1971 beatified as a confessor of the faith, and in 1982, 41 years after his death, that he was canonized as a saint and declared a confessor and martyr of charity. Saint Maximilian Kolbe was a man of immense faith, selflessness, and devotion to God. From his humble beginnings as a Franciscan to his mission in Japan and his ultimate martyrdom in Auschwitz, his life exemplifies the power of love, sacrifice, and unwavering faith. His enduring legacy serves as a reminder that even in the darkest of times, we can find light and hope through our actions and service to others. May his story continue to inspire us to live lives of love, selflessness, and devotion to our faith. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to our channel if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for joining me on this journey to learn about the life and legacy of Saint Maximilian Kolbe.